Breaking tonight, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation has executed a search warrant at a Georgia judicial office as part of an ongoing public corruption and narcotics.
What we have uncovered in the state of Georgia is not a failure of the justice system. It is the deliberate weaponization of the justice system by a transnational criminal organization, facilitated by individuals who swore an oath to uphold the law and then sold that oath to the highest bidder. That statement was delivered behind bulletproof glass at a secure federal press facility in Atlanta, Georgia, at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon. The speaker was a deputy director from the Department of Justice, flanked by senior officials from the FBI, the DEA, IC, and DHS. On the screen behind them glowed a single image, a judicial seal, cracked down the center, overlaid with a network diagram connecting courtrooms, trucking depots, port facilities, and cartel safe houses stretching from Jalisco, Mexico, to Savannah, Georgia. The numbers were staggering. 2 tons of narcotics moved through the Georgia legal system over 26 months. $87 million laundered through court-administered asset forfeiture accounts, bond processing firms, and legal aid shell organizations. 31 public officials compromised. And at the center of it all, one man, a fictional senior circuit court judge named Judge Elias Crane, who federal investigators say transformed his judicial district into a protected corridor for the CJNG cartel, one of the most violent and expansive drug cartels operating in the Western Hemisphere. 2 tons of drugs. Not hidden in tunnels. Not smuggled in submarines. Moved through courthouses. Through evidence rooms. Through the legal machinery that was supposed to destroy them. And if you think that is the worst of it, stay with this story, because what the FBI found inside Judge Crane's office was only the beginning. It was 3:48 a.m. in Atlanta, Georgia, and the city was silent in the way that only southern cities can be in the hours before dawn. Thick, warm air pressing down on empty streets, the distant sound of freight trains rolling through rail yards south of the city, and a faint orange glow along Peachtree Street where the streetlights hummed against the darkness. The crickets had stopped. Even the night felt like it was holding its breath. 12 unmarked vehicles rolled through downtown Atlanta in a staggered convoy, headlights off, guided by GPS coordinates transmitted from a mobile command unit parked inside an underground garage 4 blocks from the Fulton County Courthouse complex. Inside those vehicles sat FBI tactical agents, DEA operators, and IC Homeland Security investigations personnel, 78 federal officers in total, divided into 4 synchronized strike teams. Each team carried sealed warrants signed by a federal magistrate in Washington, D.C., specifically to bypass any possibility of local judicial compromise. They trusted no one in Georgia's court system. Not anymore. Team 1 hit Judge Crane's private judicial chambers at 3:51 a.m. The hallway outside his office smelled like floor polish and old wood. The door was reinforced mahogany with a brass nameplate. The battering ram took it down in one strike. Inside, agents found a room that looked like any senior judge's office. Leather-bound law books, framed diplomas, a mahogany desk the size of a dining table. But behind a false wall panel concealed by a floor-to-ceiling bookshelf, they found a second room. Smaller. Windowless. Equipped with 2 encrypted satellite phones, a commercial-grade paper shredder that was still warm, and a wall-mounted safe containing $412,000 in cash, 3 prepaid phones with Mexican SIM cards, and a leather portfolio holding handwritten logs of case numbers, defendant names, and what appeared to be negotiated prices for judicial outcomes. Team 2 simultaneously breached a bonding company office 6 blocks south called Liberty Bail Associates. The company had processed over $19 million in bonds over the previous 2 years, and federal surveillance had flagged that an unusual number of its highest-value clients were defendants in narcotics cases who had been released on suspiciously low bail amounts set personally by Judge Crane. Inside the office, agents found 3 employees attempting to feed documents into an industrial shredder. They were stopped. The documents included transfer receipts showing that bond payments had been routed not into county accounts, but into a network of private holding companies registered in Panama and the Cayman Islands. Team 3 hit a warehouse in the Southside Industrial District near the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport perimeter. The warehouse was registered to a fictional logistics company called Magnolia Freight Solutions. Inside, behind rows of legitimate shipping pallets stacked with Georgia peach crates and peanut products, DEA agents discovered a concealed cold storage room containing approximately 300 kilograms of cocaine, 60 kilograms of methamphetamine, and sealed containers holding an estimated 800,000 fentanyl pills. The narcotics were packaged in heat-sealed bricks marked with a distinctive 4-pointed star, a known branding symbol of the CJNG cartel's Jalisco distribution arm. Team 4 raided a luxury residence in Buckhead, one of Atlanta's wealthiest neighborhoods. The home belonged to a fictional attorney named Victor Sandoval, who served as Judge Crane's personal legal advisor and, according to federal investigators, as the primary liaison between the judge and CJNG cartel logistics coordinators operating out of Guadalajara. Sandoval was found in his bedroom. He did not resist. But before agents reached him, he had managed to drop a laptop into a filled bathtub. FBI forensic technicians recovered the laptop and later determined that its hard drive, though water damaged, was still partially recoverable. And what they pulled from that hard drive changed this case from a corruption investigation into a national security emergency. By 7:30 a.m., the recovered data from Sandoval's laptop and the contents of Judge Crane's hidden safe were being analyzed inside a secure FBI cyber forensics facility at the Atlanta field office. The room was climate-controlled, humming with the sound of servers and cooling fans. 6 analysts worked in near silence, assembling fragments of encrypted data into a coherent picture. The picture had a name. The cartel's internal documents referred to the entire Georgia operation as Proyecto Balanza, Project Balance. The name was a dark joke. Balance, as in the scales of justice. The cartel had built its American distribution network inside the one institution that Americans trust to be impartial, and they had named it after the symbol hanging above every courtroom door. Project Balance was a 3-tier system. The first tier was judicial control. Judge Crane and at least 4 other compromised judges across Georgia's circuit court system had been systematically steering narcotics cases toward predetermined outcomes. Cartel-affiliated defendants received reduced charges, lowered bail, suppressed evidence, and dismissed cases. In exchange, payments flowed through Liberty Bail Associates and 2 other bonding companies into offshore accounts controlled by cartel financial officers. The second tier was evidence diversion. Narcotics seized in legitimate law enforcement operations were supposed to be cataloged, stored, and eventually destroyed under judicial supervision. Instead, court-appointed evidence custodians, 3 of whom were on the CJNG payroll, had been rerouting seized drugs back into the cartel's distribution pipeline. Cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, and fentanyl that had been confiscated by honest police officers were being checked out of evidence rooms under falsified destruction orders signed by Judge Crane, loaded into unmarked vehicles, and delivered to cartel distribution points across the state. The justice system was not just failing to stop the drugs. It was recycling them. The third tier was financial laundering. Court-administered asset forfeiture funds, money and property seized from convicted criminals, were being funneled through a web of ghost corporations, sham legal aid nonprofits, and real estate investment trusts. Analysts traced $87 million through this system, flowing from Georgia courthouses through shell companies in Delaware and Nevada, out to offshore banks in Belize and Grand Cayman, and back into the United States as clean capital invested in commercial properties, car dealerships, and agricultural land across the Southeast. Judge Crane's digital signature appeared on authorization documents at every critical junction of this network. His encrypted communication logs, partially recovered from the satellite phones in his hidden room, showed direct exchanges with a CJNG logistics coordinator identified only by the alias El Arquitecto, the architect. The conversations were clinical and efficient, discussing shipment volumes, payment schedules, and which cases needed to be handled with priority. In one exchange, Judge Crane had written a single line that federal prosecutors would later describe as the most damning sentence in the entire investigation: "The next shipment clears Tuesday. I have already assigned the docket." This was not corruption. This was a cartel operating a parallel justice system on American soil, with a sitting judge as its chief operating officer. And the investigation was far from over. At 4:45 a.m. the following day, a federal Joint Operations Command Center activated inside Fort Eisenhower, formerly Fort Gordon, near Augusta, Georgia. The facility's main operations room had been converted into a tactical coordination hub. A wall-sized digital display showed a map of the entire state of Georgia covered in 53 pulsing red markers, each one representing a confirmed node in the Project Balance network. The markers were concentrated in Atlanta, Savannah, Macon, and Augusta, but they extended outward into rural counties, small towns, and stretches of highway that most Georgians drive through without a second thought. The operation commander briefed the assembled teams. 840 federal agents from the FBI, DEA, ICE, DHS, and the U.S. Marshal Service. 22 SWAT teams staged across the state. 6 Black Hawk helicopters positioned at airfields near Atlanta and Savannah. Armored tactical vehicles pre-positioned at 12 staging points along the interstate corridors. U.S. Coast Guard cutters patrolling the Georgia coastline near Savannah's port, where investigators believed cartel-affiliated shipping containers were still arriving on regular cargo vessels. The strike began at 5 a.m. coordinated, simultaneous, overwhelming. In Savannah, DEA and IC agents stormed a port-adjacent warehouse where a shipping container registered to a fictional seafood import company called Atlantic Catch Distributors was found to contain no seafood. Instead, it held 400 kilograms of cocaine packed inside hollow frozen fish crates, along with 70 kilograms of heroin and 200,000 fentanyl pills pressed to resemble prescription painkillers. 3 port workers and a customs broker were arrested on site. In Macon, FBI agents raided a sprawling rural property that served as a cartel transit hub. The property included a main farmhouse, 2 barns, and an underground bunker accessible through a hydraulic lift hidden beneath a horse stable floor. Inside the bunker, agents found a drug superlab, an active methamphetamine production facility capable of producing 50 kilograms per week, along with a fentanyl pill press operation and a communication center with encrypted radios tuned to law enforcement frequencies. In Augusta, SWAT teams breached a strip mall office suite that had been operating as a migrant smuggling coordination center. The office, disguised as an immigration legal services provider, was processing fraudulent asylum documents and coordinating the movement of undocumented migrants who were being forced to work as drug couriers in exchange for continued protection from deportation. 23 victims were recovered. ICE agents described the scene as one of the most disturbing human trafficking operations they had encountered on domestic soil. In rural Toombs County, agents intercepted a convoy of 3 refrigerated trucks traveling north on a state highway. The trucks were registered to a fictional agricultural company called Vidalia Golden Farms. Inside, behind pallets of sweet onions, agents found a combined total of 600 kilograms of cocaine and methamphetamine. The 3 drivers were CJNG cartel members who had entered the United States on fraudulent work visas processed through the same immigration office raided in Augusta. By noon, the numbers were overwhelming. 53 locations raided, 189 arrests. Over 2 tons of narcotics seized in total across the operation. $62 million in assets frozen. 140 weapons recovered. And 17 officials, including judges, court clerks, evidence custodians, and attorneys, taken into federal custody. The cartel's Georgia empire absorbed more damage in 7 hours than it had suffered since the day it was built. But the deepest wound came from what investigators found on the seized servers at the Macon bunker. The files there contained the cartel's internal accounting of its corruption network, a spreadsheet as cold and organized as any corporate payroll document. It showed that beyond Judge Crane, the CJNG had been making monthly payments to 26 law enforcement officers across the state. Patrol deputies, narcotics detectives, a county sheriff, 2 highway patrol supervisors, and 4 federal border liaison officers who had been stationed at ports of entry along the southern corridor. The corruption followed a precise pattern. Court docket assignments were manipulated to ensure cartel cases landed before compromised judges. Evidence room access logs were falsified to cover the removal of seized narcotics. Highway patrol supervisors rerouted traffic enforcement away from known convoy routes during scheduled shipment windows. A county sheriff in a rural district had personally escorted cartel vehicles through his jurisdiction on at least 14 documented occasions, providing what amounted to a uniformed police escort for drug shipments. An honest DEA agent who had been working narcotics cases in Georgia for 11 years sat in a federal debrief room and said something that the investigators present would not forget. He said that for 3 years he had arrested the same people, seized the same drugs, and filed the same reports, and nothing ever changed. Cases were dismissed. Evidence disappeared. Defendants walked. He said he started to believe he was accomplishing nothing, that the war was unwinnable. Now he understood. He had not been losing the war. He had been fighting a war where the referee was working for the other side. Federal agents arrested every compromised officer identified in the files. Some went quietly. Some did not. A deputy sheriff in Toombs County barricaded himself inside his home for 3 hours before surrendering. A court clerk in Atlanta attempted to destroy her personal computer with a hammer before agents reached her office. She was restrained. The computer was recovered. What investigators were seeing was not scattered corruption. It was an engineered parallel system, a shadow judiciary and a shadow police force operating inside the legitimate institutions of the state of Georgia, answering not to the people or the Constitution but to cartel commanders in Jalisco. A senior FBI official stated that every compromised position would be identified, every corrupted process would be dismantled, and the system would be rebuilt from the ground up, no matter how long it took. The full scope of Project Balance extended beyond Georgia. The shipping routes connected to port cities along the entire Gulf and Atlantic coasts. Narcotics processed through Georgia's compromised evidence rooms and transit hubs were being redistributed northward through the Carolinas, into Virginia, up the I-95 corridor into Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New York. Agricultural trucking routes carried product westward into Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. The CJNG had turned Georgia into a continental logistics hub, a centrally located fortress state where drugs could enter through the port of Savannah, be processed and redistributed through cartel-controlled infrastructure, and fan out across the eastern seaboard without ever triggering a federal alarm because the alarms had been turned off from the inside. The final document recovered from Judge Crane's encrypted satellite phone was a strategic memo authored by El Arquitecto. It outlined a 5-year plan to expand judicial infiltration into 4 additional southern states, establishing what the memo described as a legal shield network, a constellation of compromised judges, prosecutors, and court officials who could ensure that no major CJNG operative would ever face meaningful prosecution on American soil. The memo projected that within 5 years, the cartel's American legal infrastructure would be self-sustaining, generating enough laundered revenue to fund its own expansion without requiring additional investment from Mexico. The system was not being infiltrated. It was being replaced. The scales of justice were not being tipped. They were being removed entirely and rebuilt to weigh only in one direction. Judge Elias Crane was arrested at his Buckhead residence at 6:22 a.m. on the second day of operations. He was dressed in a bathrobe. He said nothing. He was charged with racketeering, conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, money laundering, obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, and aiding a transnational criminal organization. If convicted on all counts, legal experts say he will never see the outside of a federal prison. Now let this settle for a moment. This is a fictional story. Every name, every operation, every event described here was invented for dramatic storytelling. But the architecture of the threat is not invented. The CJNG cartel is real. Judicial corruption enabling narcotics trafficking is a documented phenomenon prosecuted in American courts. Fentanyl is killing tens of thousands of Americans every single year. And the intersection of organized crime and institutional corruption remains one of the most dangerous and underreported threats facing this country. Power does not always announce itself with gunfire and blood. Sometimes it announces itself with a gavel. Sometimes it wears a robe. Sometimes it sits behind a bench and looks you in the eye and tells you that justice has been served, and you believe it, because why would you not believe a judge? The cost is not abstract. It is the mother in Macon who lost her son to a fentanyl overdose from pills that were supposed to have been destroyed in an evidence room. It is the honest cop in Atlanta who spent years building cases that evaporated before they reached trial. It is every neighborhood where the drugs kept flowing no matter how many arrests were made, because the system designed to stop the flow was the same system keeping it moving. If you are still here, if this story reached you, tap like so more people see it. Comment expose if you believe that corruption hidden inside institutions needs to be dragged into the open, in fiction and in reality. This was a fictional dramatization. But the warning is real. When the people who hold the scales are the ones selling the weight, justice does not disappear with a bang. It disappears in silence. And by the time anyone notices, the scales have already been replaced.